How does caffeine affect sleep? We've talked about this a little bit earlier in the podcast, but I kind of want to go back into it 100% through because there's a few different things and ways that caffeine can be really, really affecting your sleep. And the first way that caffeine can be affecting your sleep is the blocking of adenosine. Now, adenosine is a byproduct that builds up from cell metabolism. If you aren't familiar with cell metabolism, your body uses ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. This is actually made in our cells, in the mitochondria of cells, through lots of different processes. But basically, we get ATP, triphosphate, adenosine triphosphate. When we use that phosphate, there's the byproduct of adenosine from the day. So all these different things we do, maybe we go to the grocery store, we go to work, that uses ATP. The phosphate, that's energy that gets used, but the adenosine just sits in your body. It just sits in your body. And what happens when that adenosine sits in your body is that it basically tells you, I'm getting more tired. I'm building up all this adenosine. So adenosine in itself makes you feel more tired. It kind of helps to promote overall feelings of sleepiness and tiredness. When we go to bed at night, adenosine clears out of our body. It clears out of our body. So in the morning, most of the adenosine is completely cleared, about 80%. But there does need to be about an hour to maybe 2 hours after you wake up where your adenosine, there's still about 20% left in your body, still a little bit of tiredness and sleepiness. This is part of the reason we feel groggy, is there's still a little bit of that adenosine actually in our body. This needs to be fully cleared. And if you take in caffeine, this actually will blunt the effects of adenosine. But the thing is, it doesn't get rid of the adenosine. So in the morning, say you wake up and you have some coffee, 1 hour, 30 minutes to an hour after you wake up, you are blocking the adenosine not only from it doing anything, so making you feel tired, you're also blocking it completely from getting rid of your body, from getting basically excreted and launched out of your body, right? But the thing about this is that the adenosine is still there. The adenosine is still there, so it needs to come back over time. This is why a lot of times people will have that afternoon slump later in the day, is because they're taking caffeine too early. They blunt that adenosine from getting basically fully ridded from their body. And as we discussed earlier in the podcast, the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. So if you take 100 milligrams, let's say 200 milligrams, that's about 2 cups of coffee, maybe a little bit under, but a little bit over, but 160 to 200 milligrams of coffee. You take that at 7 a.m. when you wake up in the morning. 6 hours later, 100 milligrams of coffee or caffeine from coffee, potentially, if that's what you're drinking in the morning, is still going to be in your bloodstream. That's usually when people feel that afternoon slump. In addition, usually people will have a very high carb lunch, which spikes their insulin. So there's kind of a lot of things that lead to this afternoon slump. But that caffeine right after you wake up is 100% one of the reasons. You are not allowing that adenosine to fully clear up. So what I recommend to people, although it is tough and although it is tricky, I recommend to try to not have caffeine right after they wake up. Wait about 90 minutes to 2 hours after they wake up, as this fully allows adenosine to clear from your body, which can ultimately lead you to better energy throughout the day. And then it'll also allow you to not only have better energy, but that adenosine won't be pushed to later in the day to make you feel tired, to make you sleep, and then just lead to this never-ending cycle of I need caffeine to wake me up in the morning, but it's messing with my adenosine, which makes me tired, so then I need to sleep, but then you get the picture. It's a never-ending cycle. Another way that caffeine actually affects sleep is sleep itself. And you probably heard the person that has said, maybe even you have said, I can fall asleep just fine. I have no issues with intaking caffeine or coffee right before I sleep. This may be true, especially if your tolerance is okay, as in like you don't feel the effects of caffeine very, very well. You probably can. But the thing about this is that caffeine actually affects your overall sleep quality. So you may be able to fall asleep fine, but the actual quality of your sleep is not as good. For example, if you go to bed and you drink some coffee right before you're sleeping and you sleep 8 hours, the actual quality of your sleep is going to go down. You might be a little more restless. You might toss and turn more. You might not get as restorative of sleep because even though you fell asleep and it feels like you're sleeping fine, you're going to be a little more agitated. Also, there's some stuff that happens in the brain where your body is just simply not going to be able to go through all the different cycles of good, high quality sleep it needs. So your sleep's not going to be as restorative versus if you just had 8 hours of normal sleep with no coffee or caffeine before, guess what? It's going to be a lot better. So if you have coffee or caffeine before you sleep, you might have 8 hours of time in bed, but only 6 hours of sleep, versus if you had 8 hours in bed without coffee, you might be getting 7 good hours of sleep. So just something to consider. And of course, this will affect the next day. You're tired, you have decreased mental clarity, you're not going to be able to focus as well. You're not going to be able to perform in your activities of daily life, or of course working out in the gym. If you do like working out, you're not going to be able to work out as well, which can lead to you not doing workouts and skipping them, which has its own set of consequences that we all know. You might lead yourself to grabbing more coffee, which seems good at the time, but the tiredness that you have is, again, just as we described, that adenosine still hasn't fully cleared. So you're just blunting the adenosine again. Again, you're feeling more energetic, but the adenosine isn't clearing from your body. So then it's going to be pushed back even later. So then you get tired even later, take more coffee, potentially right before bed because you needed it to get through the day, and then it messes with your sleep. It really, really is a never-ending cycle. And I want to go back to this idea of half-life again. The half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. So if you are consuming caffeine, I keep saying coffee. Coffee is one of the most widely used sources of caffeine out there. If you are taking some coffee or caffeine at noon, guess what? 6 hours later, half of what you took will be in your body. 12 hours later, a quarter of it will still be in your body. So if you drink 200 milligrams of caffeine, say you have an energy drink at noon, 100 milligrams will be at 6 p.m. and then 50 milligrams will be at midnight. So pretty crazy stuff there. Pretty crazy stuff when you're thinking about your overall consumption at all. And hopefully this gives you some good context into how it affects your sleep and how it could also affect your mental energy, and clarity throughout the rest of the day. Because if you know this, you can really play and use caffeine to your advantage to kind of help you wake up a little bit, spike that cortisol, but also not use it too late in the day where it's messing with you for the rest of the day. So caffeine can be used. It actually can help your sleep, but the way most people use caffeine, it's not a good story. So thanks so much for joining this stream today. Like the video if this helped. Subscribe to the channel as we make videos helping individuals of all abilities inside the gym and become healthier in life.